So two stories that really sort of drive sustainability home for me, and also tie back into supply chain. So the first one, I think I'm an old sailor. I was in the Navy for 5 years with an F-18 squadron, so I was out on aircraft carriers. And
Oh, hence the book beside you. Cool.
and actually, this is one of my boats. There's that CVN 74 that John C. sent us.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I remember on that boat being out in the middle of the ocean, and if you can imagine, it it turns out the Earth is a really big place, and when you're out on the ocean, you can see for a long, long way. And I remember
Yeah.
standing up on the flight deck and seeing trails of debris going off into the horizon.
Wow.
If you can imagine, like 10-gallon cooking oil bottles and metal barrels and plastic wrap and just all kinds of crap. And these were the breadcrumbs. These were the trails left behind by other vessels, for the most part, cargo ships, right?
Yeah.
That just
Yeah.
threw stuff overboard. And if it were one ship doing that once a year on the scale of the planet, it wouldn't be a huge deal. But Michael, we look at marine traffic. There's a lot of boats out there.
It's a lot of damn
And
boats. A
and
lot of damn boats.
and so, when you start thinking about the scale and the impact of that, right, as supply chain people, we've got to own that. The second one, my wife she grew up in Bolivia.
Oh, wow. My oldest daughter, Isabel, just graduated from UCF. I adopted her from Santa Cruz in Bolivia.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. So my brother-in-law and his family are in Santa Cruz. But my wife grew up in La Paz, which is way up in the Andes Mountains. And
Been there too.
And well, there you go. And one of my early trips down there, early in our marriage, my father-in-law and I went on this guy's trip to he was going to show me the highest ski resort in the world.
Wow.
Which was made by a bunch of physics nerds who were up at an observatory on this glacier in the Andes Mountains, within driving distance of La Paz. And so he takes me up to the highest ski resort in the world, and as you might imagine, it sort of looks like a clothesline with an old Chevy 350 engine to drive the thing.
Bolivia's not a very rich country,
right? But the thing that was missing was there wasn't any snow. The glacier that they had built this thing on, and that my father-in-law, when he was a young man, had gone up and was such a sort of quirky attraction. It's gone. That glacier,
wow,
it does not exist anymore. And so having those sorts of experiences, you just go, the climate is changing. We as human beings and as supply chains we can't deny the damage that we're doing to the planet.
Mm-mm.
We have to take ownership of it, and we have to find ways of reducing the impact and turning it around, because the ones who are going to suffer, maybe us, will certainly be our kids and our grandkids. And so we have to figure out how to make it better and how to make it work.
We absolutely do. And so let me ask you this one last question on this Sustainiacs extra with Mr. Supply Chain, Daniel Stanton, is this. I did a little article today. It was based on a couple other articles. One was by University of Washington Supply Chain out west, PNW, the University of Washington. And they were talking about the ethics and sustainability of same and next day delivery, and some quotes by Jeff Bezos talking about how, a lot of ways, the speed of delivery has reduced the carbon footprint, because now the shipments, et cetera, are coming from, staging areas or distributions that are closer to population centers. And I basically said, I've never read a more obvious line of BS in my entire life, because they weren't produced right there in those. They still had to move to those locations. There's zero reduction in carbon footprint by doing this. In fact, I contend that our desire for this convenience of getting this coffee mug today or tomorrow instead of waiting a week, which you can do, nobody has to have it today, is contributing hugely to the carbon footprint and emissions issues, and even causing the automation of warehouses, which are great and they're efficient, but they also make those warehouses less green. It's more green to have people working in a warehouse than it is automation, because you're not drawing on the energy as much. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't. For
it's
me,
an interesting conversation, right?
That's right. And by the way, those are the ones that I love to actually get into researching. Is where intelligent people would look at it and immediately come to contradictory conclusions.
Two different people will think totally different.
Two different smart supply chain people would look at the same problem, see it opposite ways, and that pulls us full circle to say what we really need to be able to do is be transparent about all of the inputs and all of the outputs, and do that accounting to figure out at the end of the day what's best for the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to those research, those studies and stuff, because I'm sitting here and I hear you say like, oh, it's more green, but I guess it depends on like what's your definition, because well, you got to relying less on the electricity, but then you have people driving into work every day that are causing emissions with their cars. You have people who are, I don't know, wearing more clothing because they have to leave the house, more protective equipment that's being created. And I guess it just comes down to
you're right.
Definition of green.
You can get into it.
Where do you draw the boundaries around the system, and what are you going to measure?
Right.
Yeah, because agreed. Because one of the things is this: if you can order stuff and it gets delivered the next day or whatever, and it comes out, that's one more person not driving. No. That's one more delivery vehicle coming out today that could wait until the end of the week and take 10 deliveries out instead of coming out once.
But if you've got the density, why does it matter whether it's today or 10 days?
It doesn't. It doesn't matter if you've got the density, and that's where the studies come in, at Daniel, right? And that's where you got to look at these things, because I'm just thinking in my neighborhood, there's no way in the next 2 hours that there's enough density to have somebody come out here and deliver me this coffee.
Move out of the boondocks, and then you can get your mug whenever you want it.
It's not always what it seems, I think.
Yeah. No, it's just an example of. We've got to look at these different things. Like you said, right. You got to have these conversations and kind of talk about it. Because I got a ton of people saying, yeah, you're damn right. And I'm thinking to myself, I wrote this because I wanted to see how many people would agree with me 100%. If I think something is a certain way, I will argue the opposite in order to try and figure out if I'm right or not. Right. I very much believe that if two people are in a room,
complicated marriage, Michael Vincent.
No, I believe that if two people are in a, well, I mean, it's my intellectual curiosity or my fun is doing that. It's like, if there's two people in a room and we both agree, then one of us is useless. So I'm going to take the other side just to see if we can.
It's a good way to solve problems, and it's a good way to help yourself realize the other edge of a situation. Like,
right. Yeah.
Instead of just getting so entrenched in your own beliefs that you don't want to hear anything about innovation or any other side,